Chapter 18. Betrayal and Truth. The dark sky was tainted with an ominous green glow of magical energy. A towering obsidian altar stood at the center of the battlefield, like a gateway to the underworld, shrouded in a suffocating aura of necromancy. Sorcerers encircled the magical formation, clad in deep purple ceremonial robes, their hands raised high as they chanted ancient, low incantations. Black runes slowly surfaced, writhing as if imbued with life, coiling around the entire ritual. The image of the undead king flickered in and out of existence, a massive, indistinct silhouette, as though an entity on the verge of awakening from the void. His eyes burned with an eerie green fire, opening occasionally as if peering into the mortal realm. Yet each time his image neared full manifestation, the glow of the magical formation would suddenly dim, as though lacking a crucial guide, preventing the completion of the ritual. "What is going on?" Night Owl's voice rang out abruptly, filled with impatience and fury. Standing on high ground, his black armor gleamed with a cold sheen beneath the night. His piercing gaze swept over the sorcerers on the altar. His patience had long been exhausted, and the undead king's delayed awakening planted seeds of doubt in his mind regarding the ritual's success. The ritual has been ongoing for 3 days and nights. Why has the undead king's power yet to fully manifest? Night Owl demanded harshly, his eyes flickering with a hint of unease. The grand sorcerer presiding over the ritual trembled slightly, cold sweat forming on his forehead as he lowered his head in explanation. "General, the magical formation has indeed reached the seal of the undead king, but it seems we are still missing a crucial guiding element." "Missing what?" Night Owl's voice turned ice cold, exuding an undeniable pressure. The grand sorcerer hesitated before speaking in a hushed tone. "Within the ancient magic inscribed upon the seal, there is a unique bloodline imprint. Without the direct intervention of this bloodline, the undead king's complete resurrection will be obstructed." As his words fell, a brief silence enveloped the ritual site. Standing off to the side, Rehn furrowed his brow slightly, his gaze thoughtful as he watched the flickering glow of the magical formation. More than anyone else, he could perceive the changes in the runes. Their arrangement bore an astonishing resemblance to the experimental records he had seen in the Empire's classified archives. "A bloodline imprint," Rehn muttered, recalling the secret document he had discovered earlier. In that record, the Empire had conducted a series of experiments known as the Undead Pact, seeking individuals with a unique resonance with undead energy. Among the test subjects, one particular designation stood out: Experiment number 23. He had once assumed this was merely part of the Empire's undead research, but now it seemed that this experiment was directly tied to the resurrection of the Undead King. If the Empire had the complete ritual method from the start, why conduct these experiments? Rehn's frown deepened, his doubts growing stronger. Was the Undead King's revival truly just to bolster the Empire's military strength? Or was there another hidden motive? His gaze instinctively drifted toward Vivian, who stood beside the altar. Dressed in an elegant black gown, Vivian wore a faint, enigmatic smile, as though entirely indifferent to the surrounding chaos. She listened silently to the sorcerer's discussion, her eyes glinting with an unfathomable light. For a brief moment, Rehn's gaze met hers. Vivian smiled slightly, as if she had sensed his doubts, yet she offered no explanation. Rehn's heart sank. He had a gnawing suspicion that Vivian knew far more than she was letting on. But at this moment, he couldn't afford any rash actions. He had no choice but to suppress his questions and observe the unfolding events. Night Owl swept a cold glance over the altar, before speaking in a low voice. "Continue the ritual. Find the cause of the problem as soon as possible. The Empire's plan must not fail here." The sorcerers hurriedly nodded and intensified their chanting, but the undead king's form remained elusive, as though waiting for the true key to arrive. Standing in the shadows, Rehn silently watched everything, his unease deepening. If the Empire truly sought to revive the undead king, whose blood were they waiting for? The howling wind swept over the obsidian altar, carrying the thick presence of the undead. The eerie green glow flickered against the night sky, as if all the spirits of the dead were waiting for a crucial moment to arrive. Night Owl stood atop the high platform, his black armor tinged with a dark purple hue from the corruption of the undead energy. His face remained hidden in the shadows, his gaze sharp as a hawk's as he locked onto Vivian, who stood before the magic circle. Vivian. His voice was low and dangerous, laced with barely concealed impatience. The ritual is still incomplete, and you seem to know why. Enough with the noble tricks. Tell me the real reason. The surrounding sorcerers held their breath, even their chanting growing quieter, afraid of angering the commander of the Black Legion. Vivian smiled faintly, unshaken. Her fingers traced the edges of the magic circle, grazing the ancient runes, as if she were feeling the flow of undead energy within them. "General Night Owl, why the rush?" she said calmly, completely unfazed by his anger. "Indeed, there is a problem with the ritual, but the problem does not lie with us. It lies with the missing existence." As soon as she spoke, Rehn's brows furrowed. "A missing existence?" Vivian turned her gaze to him, her expression unreadable. "Lord Rehn, as one of the Empire's most distinguished commanders, you must have noticed something, haven't you?" She smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "During your investigation of the secret documents, did you happen to come across a particular number? Experiment number 23? Rehn's pupils slightly contracted. "An experiment?" Night Owl repeated in a low voice, his gaze turning even colder. "Explain." Vivian sighed softly, stepping into the center of the altar. With a wave of her hand, the magic circle flared, its runes writhing and interweaving until they formed an image. A projection of an ancient ceiling formation appeared, with a single glistening blood droplet suspended at its core, pulsating faintly, in the darkness like a miniature heart. "A vessel of undead blood," she said softly. "Experiment number 23, whom you all know as Alya." Boom! It was as if thunder had struck inside Rehn's mind. The fragmented pieces of the puzzle fit together all at once, his heartbeat quickening as his fingers unconsciously curled into a fist. "You're saying Alya is an experiment?" His voice was deep, carrying a trace of barely restrained fury. "Precisely." Vivian's smile remained gentle. "She is not some chosen one, nor the rightful heir to the undead king's power. She is merely the result of the Empire's years of research, a medium designed to connect with the undead king." Night Owl's eyes flashed briefly, indicating that even he was unaware of this secret project. His sharp gaze bore into Vivian. "Explain in detail." Vivian turned her attention back to the ghostly green flames within the magic circle, her tone carrying an air of casual narration. "The revival of the undead king requires a unique bloodline as a guide. However, the true undead bloodline was wiped out centuries ago," she explained. "Yet, the Empire's scholars discovered a method. Even if the true bloodline was lost, they could still create a suitable vessel." With a flick of her wrist, the image shifted, revealing a dimly lit underground laboratory. Countless containment chambers filled with dark liquid lined the walls, each holding the vague outline of a human form. Rehn's chest tightened. The experiment's goal was to find the most compatible individual capable of hosting the undead king's power, Vivian continued. But none of the trials were successful, until experiment number 23. A shadowy figure appeared in the projection. Though the image was blurred, Rehn instantly recognized her. It was Alya. His breath caught in his throat. Alya wasn't an ordinary person. She was an imperial experiment. Her power wasn't something she was born with, but rather something she had been given. Under his black cloak, Rehn's fists clenched involuntarily. A dull ache spread through his chest. He didn't want to believe it. The girl who had fought alongside him on the battlefield, who had struggled against the undead in the dead of night, who had bared her pain and resilience before him. Was she really nothing more than a product of the Empire's experiments? Yet, the truth aligned with everything he had uncovered in the secret documents. He couldn't deny it. Alya might truly be nothing more than a tool created by the Empire. Night Owl observed Vivian coldly. So, what you're saying is, to complete the ritual, we need to find Alya? Exactly. Vivian's lips curved into a smile. Only her bloodline can fully awaken the undead king, and right now, she is hiding among the remnants of the resistance forces. However, that does not interfere with our next move. Rehn's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Vivian turned to gaze at the spectral form of the undead king hovering in the sky, her expression unreadable. She will return, sooner or later. Rehn's chest tightened with a sense of foreboding, but Vivian offered no further explanation. She simply smiled, turned away from the altar, and left behind a single parting remark. The truth is always revealed in due time, isn't it? The ghostly undead glow flickered behind her, while Rehn's world descended into chaos. On the altar of the undead, eerie green flames blazed, casting flickering shadows on the faces of those present. The air was thick with the pungent scent of blood, and the runes of the magic circle continued their slow rotation, as if awaiting the final key component. Standing on the high platform, General Night Owl swept his icy gaze over the gathered figures before finally settling on Rehn. Rehn, his voice was low and unquestionable. You will personally retrieve Alya. In an instant, the air above the altar seemed to freeze. Rehn's heart clenched, and his fingertips instinctively tightened. He knew that when General Night Owl said retrieve, it did not simply mean bringing Alya back. It meant ensuring that her blood was used for the ritual. In other words, her life or death was not a consideration. He was silent for half a second before slowly lifting his head, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Why me? General Night Owl descended the platform step by step, his armor gleaming coldly under the undead flames. Because you know her best. His tone was calm, as though he were merely issuing an ordinary military order. You've fought against her. You've studied her past. More than anyone else, you are the most capable of completing this mission. Rehn did not answer immediately. His heart was pounding. This time, he wasn't being sent to suppress a rebellion or conquer a city. He was being sent to retrieve someone he had once thought was just an ordinary girl. But now, Alya's true identity had been revealed. She was not an ordinary person, nor was she even a true heir of the bloodline. She was merely a tool created by the Empire, an experiment designed to awaken the king of the undead. Was her fate truly sealed? Rehn's fingers grew slightly cold. He closed his eyes, and in his mind, he saw her in battle. Her defiant gaze, her unwavering determination as she swung her sword without hesitation. If she was just a tool, then why did she have such eyes? If she was merely an experiment, then why did she feel fear, anger, and resistance? Was her destiny truly beyond her own control? Slowly, Rehn opened his eyes. His expression was complex, his emotions turbulent, yet his face remained cold and unreadable. He merely gave a slight nod. Understand. General Night Owl narrowed his eyes, watching him for a long moment before the faintest trace of a cold smile curled his lips. Good. His voice was chilling in its tranquility. I hope you won't disappoint me. Rehn said nothing more. He simply turned and strode away from the obsidian altar. Rehn's hesitation. The night was deep, and whispers of the undead echoed in the wind. Rehn walked alone up the stone steps leading to the military encampment, his armor clinking softly in, the cold breeze his hand clenched into a fist, turmoil surging in his heart like never before. He had never doubted the Empire. From the day he had joined the Black Armor Legion in his youth, he had understood that the Empire's orders were absolute. A soldier's duty was to execute, not to question. But this time, for the first time, he was wavering. Alya's face surfaced in his mind. Her gaze was defiant, filled with unyielding battle spirit, yet hidden within it was a sorrow that could not be put into words. He recalled the first time she had gripped a sword. He remembered her standing amidst corpses, drenched in blood, yet refusing to fall. Was she truly just a tool created by the Empire? If so, then what was her pain, her struggle, her fury? Rehn closed his eyes and took a deep breath, his hand slowly reaching for the hilt of his sword. As his fingers touched the cold steel, he realized they were slightly trembling. He had never doubted himself. He had never disobeyed an Imperial command. But this time, could he really go through with it? Vivian's observation. Meanwhile, atop the altar, Vivian silently watched Rehn's retreating figure, the corners of her lips curving into a knowing smile. "General Night Owl," she said softly, "do you really think Rehn will complete this mission?" General Night Owl did not answer immediately. Instead, he gazed sharply at the darkened path where Rehn had vanished, his eyes as deep and unfathomable as an abyss. "He will." His voice was resolute, yet tinged with an almost imperceptible indifference. "If he cannot even do this, then he has no reason to exist." Vivian let out a light laugh, a glimmer of intrigue flickering in her eyes. She had already noticed Rehn's hesitation. That brief moment, that silent pause, that fleeting ripple of uncertainty. She had seen it all. She was not surprised. Rehn was the Empire's finest warrior, but he was also its most dangerous variable. He possessed formidable combat skills, a calm and strategic mind, yet a heart that had not been entirely stripped of its own will. A man like that, if loyal, would be the Empire's sharpest blade, but if cracks formed, he would become the most unpredictable threat. "Let's wait and see," Vivian murmured, her voice laced with mystery. General Night Owl did not reply. He merely narrowed his eyes, slightly, pondering for a moment before turning and disappearing into the darkness. And far away, beneath the night sky, Rehn stood alone atop a mountain peak. The wind tugged at his black cloak as he gazed down at the land beneath him, his expression unreadable. This time, could he truly carry out the Empire's command? He didn't know. But one thing was certain. His heart could no longer remain as unwavering as it once was. The night was deep, and the magical patterns on the obsidian altar continued their slow rotation, glowing with a ghostly blue hue, like a vortex from the abyss, devouring all light. Rehn stood in the center of the plaza, the night wind billowing his black cloak. His hand unconsciously tightened around the hilt of his sword. At this moment, his heart was a battlefield of contradictions. Alya, the specimen of undead blood, experiment number 23, the key in the Empire's grand design. Before he became the vice commander of the Black Armor Legion, he had never once doubted the Empire's orders. What the Empire required, he executed. What the Empire commanded, he fulfilled without question. But this time, for the first time, he found himself questioning the will of the Empire. He could not forget the sight of Alya struggling to survive on the battlefield, could not ignore the fire and defiance in her eyes, and most of all, he could not suppress that strange feeling. When he watched her fight, he had, for a fleeting moment, thought she was free. Yet now, the Empire told him she was nothing more than a test subject, a tool to be used and discarded at will. Do test subjects truly have no choice? Rehn closed his eyes, forcing himself to calm down. He could not afford to let anyone notice his wavering resolve. When he opened his eyes again, all emotion had been buried deep, leaving only the cold mask of duty. He dropped to one knee, his right, fist striking against his chest in a crisp salute to General Night Owl. I understand. I will retrieve Alya without fail. Night Owl's test. Night Owl's gaze was as sharp as a blade, fixed on Rehn, silent for a long time. He had been watching Rehn's expression, searching for the subtlest shift, the slightest hesitation. Rehn had always been the Empire's most loyal soldier, calm, rational, never disobedient. Yet tonight, something about him felt different. A flicker of caution sparked in Night Owl's mind. This was not the first time someone had questioned the Empire's plans, and every officer who had ever harbored doubt had met the same inevitable fate. He needed to test Rehn. Good, Night Owl said, his voice low and laced with an unspoken warning. But let me remind you, the Empire does not tolerate failures, nor does it forgive traitors. The words were like an invisible dagger, aimed straight at Rehn's heart. If he harbored any treasonous thoughts, this was the moment he would reveal them. But Rehn remained perfectly still in his kneeling posture, unwavering. I understand. His tone was as firm as iron, devoid of hesitation. Night Owl studied him, searching his gaze for any sign of weakness. A few beats later, the general finally withdrew his scrutiny and spoke indifferently. Go. Rehn stood, turned, and left without hesitation. But just as he was about to step out of the plaza, a soft voice called out, Vivian's game, Rehn. The voice was light, almost casual, but it stopped him in his tracks. Rehn paused ever so slightly, yet he did not turn back. Vivian smiled. She took a few slow steps forward, the hem of her black gown trailing behind her like a serpent slithering across the ground. She was unbothered by Night Owl's presence, her gaze fixed intently on Rehn's back, her voice carrying a cryptic amusement. You know, she mused, sometimes even test subjects can change their fate. She let the words hang in the air, her deep, knowing eyes locked onto him. If they live long enough, that is. The sentence was a dagger, aimed at the most vulnerable part of Rehn's heart. His fists clenched tighter, his nails nearly piercing his palm, yet his face remained as emotionless as ever. What are you implying? Night Owl asked coolly, his gaze shifting to Vivian with a trace of scrutiny. Oh, nothing. Vivian chuckled, turning away and reaching out to trace her fingers along the glowing magic runes of the altar. I just find it intriguing. Rehn seems rather invested in her, doesn't he? Night Owl's gaze darkened instantly. Vivian said nothing more, only offering a faint, enigmatic smile. She had already planted the seed in Rehn's heart. Now, all she needed to do was wait for it to take root and grow. Rehn took his final step, out of the plaza, never once looking back. But everyone knew, this was no longer a simple mission. The tides had shifted, and the game had entered its most dangerous phase. A true choice was looming on the horizon.